Okay, and we are back. Good Morning Kenya continues. My name is Vivian Degwa, and right now you are right in time for the Women at the Forefront segment. And today, as I had mentioned earlier on when we were starting the show, I am joined by Dr. Mary Mugo, who is a PhD holder. She is a consultant and senior lecturer in strategy, governance and leadership school. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Vivian.
You're doing well this morning?
I'm well. Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, if we may just begin, because today I want us to talk about strategic management and just how to go about being a good strategic manager. What does strategic management entail?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Vivian. Let me start by saying that any human being, any organization, any nation must engage in strategic management. Why? Because it is one thing to be a manager, it's another thing to be strategic in your management. Now, strategic management basically involves the decisions that you make, the series of decisions that you make so that you can achieve your goal. And strategic management has various components. The first component is that you must be able to analyze your environment. So environmental analysis is the first thing that you must do in strategic management, so that you get to know from the internal aspect what are our strengths, what are our challenges, what are the opportunities, what are the threats. And then you do the external environment, which basically you do through what we call PESTEL. You look at the politics, the social aspect, the technological aspects. And then the second thing that you do when you analyze the environment, then you do strategy formulation. So you formulate your strategies. And strategies generally are 3 levels, 4 levels, so to speak. So you have the corporate level, or for example, if it's a country, you have the national level, and then you have the business level, the functional level. And then after you formulate your strategies, the third component is strategy implementation. And that is where, from a strategic point of view, that is where we have issues. Because people have great strategic plans, people have plans, including Kenya, we have Vision 2030 and many other plans, but when it comes to implementation is where the issue is. So you must ensure that in strategic implementation you do the right thing. And then the fourth component is strategy, evaluation, and monitoring. Once you have your strategy in place, if you are a good strategic manager, you must also continuously monitor your strategy and then evaluate your strategy at a point in time. That's the difference between monitoring and evaluation. When you monitor something, you do it continuously. When you evaluate, you say every year, we are going to evaluate what we have done. So strategic management has those 4 key components. And it is important for any manager, whether you're in a corporation, even your own life, actually. I keep saying that strategy is everything in life. Even sitting down is strategic because you must be able to sit in a certain way for you not to fall.
True.
So strategic management is about life. Basically, that is what strategic management entails. Yeah.
As you've mentioned, we set plans, right? But the implementation sometimes is where the problem comes in. So maybe how would you advise someone, or how would you advise a leader to go about ensuring that these strategies that you've put in place, you are implementing them, the implementation is actually happening?
Yeah, the most important thing to do in implementation is you must have an implementation matrix, where basically you have clearly stated this is what this person is going to do, and by this time. And let me say that in implementation, leadership and culture are very important. The reason why many organizations, even nations, have great plans, but nothing seems to happen is because of leadership and culture. Because leadership is everything. As they say leadership falls and rises on, organizations fall and rise on communication. But I keep saying that leadership itself will fall or rise on communication. So as a leader, you must cultivate a certain culture for people to want to do what you think they should be doing. Because a good leader should take you where you have never been or where you don't want to go. A good leader doesn't just take you where everybody is going. The question they should ask themselves is, if this is where we are going, because a strategic plan should have the vision, this is where we are going. How do I get my people there? Now that is the strategy. So the next question would be, so who is responsible for what? And then of course give them the resources to do what they are supposed to do. And above all things, give them the autonomy to do what they are supposed to do. So implementation becomes a problem in organizations, even in nations, because sometimes the leadership is not doing what they should be doing, and probably the culture is wrong. People are used, generally human beings like status quo, generally.
Yeah.
So people don't want to change. People are already in their comfort. So when you tell them, let's go this way, they're like, we are okay. In fact, people keep saying if it's working, there's no need of breaking it. So I keep saying from a strategic point, you should ask yourself if it is working too well, maybe we should break it so that we can see if we can do something different, you know? Yeah, so the key issue in implementation is you must have a matrix which clearly states this is what we're going to do, this is the output, this is the person going to do it, and this is what is going to cost us. And then continuously monitor and evaluate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from that, I'm getting communication, you know? And maybe what is the importance of communication in strategic management?
Yeah, the first important thing is, Vivian, is to understand is even before you come up with your plan, you must involve all the stakeholders. And you can't involve all the stakeholders unless there's communication. You must communicate to the employees or to the citizens and tell them, this is where I want us to go. What are your views? So in strategic management, transparent and authentic communication is very important. It's not just communication, but you're communicating in a transparent manner. You're telling people, why is it that we need to go this way? Which tells you in strategic management, you don't force things. No. You're supposed to speak to people, let them understand why as a leader you think this is where we should be going. Because you, in a vision, in strategic management, the people you lead must buy your vision. If they don't buy your vision, you find yourself either going alone or forcing them to go with you. And that doesn't work in strategy. So for them to buy your vision, you must not just communicate, but you must inspire them in your communication so that they feel that what the leader is saying is worth our time and is worth us leaving our comfort zone. So communication must be transparent. Why? Because people need to understand where you're going. And communication also comes in because as you implement your strategy, you must always get feedback. Because you see, the implementer is not the leader. The person who implements strategy are the people, what we call in strategy, the functional areas. For example, if KBC has a strategy, the people implementing that strategy are yourselves. So it is important that the management gets to know from you guys what is happening. And the only way that can be done is communication. And you must, as a leader, you must give people the environment for them to be able to tell you the truth. Because in strategy, you don't want to do things and we keep telling you it's working, but we know it is not working. That is why that communication must be transparent and authentic. And as a leader, you must have a listening ear so that you get to understand if we are doing this, yes, we must do it because of 1, 2, 3, but are people with us? So a good leader in strategy must be able to communicate, and in that communication you become adaptable because strategies change. When you do the environmental scan, you realize that the environment is dynamic. What worked last year may not be working today. So without communication, it becomes very difficult to do your implementation.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And how does one go about managing, you know, and assessing risks when implementing a strategic plan?
Yeah, strategic plan, I keep saying people must understand that a strategic plan is not static, it's dynamic. You cannot do a plan today and sit for 5 years and say we have a plan. No. Plans must be, reviewed every year or every 2 years because the environment is dynamic. Now, the first thing that you must do when you want to manage risk in strategy is you must identify those risks. So what are the risks? After you identify them, you assess them. So you identify these are the risks that we are likely to face. And by that identification is continuous. You can, when you're doing your environmental analysis, you identify we are likely, for example, from a company point of view, you can say that there's a likelihood there will be no resources, there will be no money. What do we do? You know? So you identify. After you identify, you assess, because there are risks that are high, there are risks that are low, there are risks that they are really not much. After you assess your risks, the other thing that you must do is to mitigate those risks. And strategically speaking, you can mitigate risk through various ways. One of them is you can just, what I would call, you can reduce the risk, you know. You can reduce the risk sometimes by simply doing other things. You can also acknowledge that the risk exists and look for a way of ignoring it in quotes, because it's not affecting you much. Sometimes from a strategic point, you can pass the risk to the third party, meaning you can actually insure something. Even from a strategic point of view, you can insure something so that the risk is not too high. Or sometimes you can alter. Altering basically means that you can look at the risk and say, we need to alter our plan for us to avoid this risk. So managing risk during strategic plan is very, very important. And you must be able to identify those risks, and you must be able to assess them and mitigate them using various ways. Because it's not every risk that you can actually reduce, it's not every risk you can acknowledge and do something. Sometimes you may have to alter your plan. For example, if you realize that your resources are not as much, you cannot, just as an example, you cannot reduce employee salary because you must achieve your plan, you know. So you must alter your plan and ensure that now you spend less money, because there are other things that must be done. Yeah.
So for every plan, you have to look at the risk and identify these risks before you you move forward with the plan. Okay. Now, when you talk about goals, you know, and this is not just only for organizations and institutions, even as individuals, we set goals. How do you go about setting goals? You know? Because this is for everyone. I'm sure everyone tries to set a goal for themselves, you know, so how to go about that?
Now, setting goals is very important, as you've said, both in life and for an organization, even for a nation. That's why everybody has a plan. And that is why at the beginning of the year, everybody sets goals. Now, when you're setting goals, there are few things from an individual organization point that you must take into consideration. Number one, your goals must be C-smart. You know, C-smart, as they say. Many people just say smart. But we normally say from a strategic point, they must be C-smart. C standing for challenging. You know? So you must first of all have in mind that whatever goals that I'm setting must be challenging. Because, you know, if you set goals that are so easy to achieve, there's no motivation. You know? If you know you're going to achieve something, there's no need of setting it as a goal, right? Yeah? So other than that, before you set your goals, you need to do an analysis. I would say you need to do what these days we don't say SWOT analysis, because it denotes negative energy. So we say you need to do a SCOT analysis. You need to look at, what are my strengths? What am I good at? What are those things that I have passion for? Even an organization must be able to do that. Then you look at your challenges. What are the kind of challenges that I'm likely to face this year? Then you go for, what are the opportunities that are likely to be there? That is a SCOT analysis. Or even, what kind of threats am I likely to face? So as you set your goals, you must do your SCOT analysis, or what they call SWOT analysis. Get to know, what are my strengths, what are my challenges, what are my opportunities, and what are my threats. After you have done that, you also do that's internal. You're looking at yourself. You also do an external analysis. Okay, I may be strong in this, but will the politics allow me to do it? What about the technological aspect? What about the legal aspect? So you must do the pastel part of it analysis. So in other words, you must do both internal and external analysis whether you are an individual or an organization. After you have done that analysis, then you go ahead and set your C-SMART goals. But now also some others say that you need to do goals that are fast, F-A-S-T, basically meaning that your goals must be, you know, always discussed, as in you continuously discuss your goals. But I think the best model of doing it is just to do a SWOT analysis, just to know what is it that you're good at, what is it that I'm gonna do, so that you are able to set goals that are not just challenging, but also they are relevant to you, they are timely, you know, smart, they're specific, they are measurable. Very, very important. Sometimes people do goals that are not measurable. For example, you cannot say that I'm going to lose weight this year. That's not a goal that is measurable.
Really?
No.
Why is it not? I'm sure that is normally a goal for so many people when starting the year. You know, you want to go to the gym, maybe you want to lose weight. Why is that not measurable? You
cannot say that my goal is to lose weight this year. That's not a measurable goal. You should say, this year I'll lose 2 kilos.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2 is measurable. But when you say, when you set it that way, you are basically saying even if you lose a quarter of, you have met your goal. Yeah. It's just like even finances. You don't just say I'm going to be wealthy. You should say that this year I'm going to make 2 million. That's measurable. So it must be specific, measurable, attainable, timely, and realistic or relevant. This, I think I prefer, instead of realistic, I prefer saying relevant, because it must be relevant to you as a person or relevant to you as an organization. Yeah.
And how to go about evaluating performance? What's the best way to go about evaluating performance and effectiveness? Yeah.
Now, when you have done your strategic plan, or even a strategy for that matter, that is why it must be measurable. Because if you have said, I'm going to, let's use sales because I'm a salesman. If you say that the organization is going to achieve 1 million sales, then you must have, actually in strategic plan, you also have something with a matrix for evaluation, where basically you say that we said we are going to do this by this time, have we done it? But from a strategic management point of view, you use what we call the balanced scorecard from an organization point of view, balanced scorecard. So you look at finances, you look at customers, you look at everybody around you to see if you really achieve. Because you know, you don't achieve your objectives by denying others their rights. I think that's very important. You know, you can be so ambitious as an organization, even as a nation, and you start, you know, infringing other people's rights because you must achieve your goal. That's why, and by the evaluation is at a specific period in time. So you say after 1 year, we are going to see what have we done. Monitoring is the one that is continuous. And monitoring is done through reports. It is done through meetings where you get feedback. Evaluation is a report at the end of a period. Yeah. Yeah.
If you are open to do this, you know, if you may share with us a successful strategic initiative that you have led.
Myself?
Yeah.
Let me first say that I've worked in the private sector for many years. I've worked in IT. I've worked in manufacturing. I've worked in a service industry, and my last job was in aviation. I've sold planes. No, not air tickets, planes.
You've sold planes?
Yes, you take the entire plane and go and pay me for the entire plane. Before I retired strategically, because I retired strategically and went to teaching.
How do you move from selling planes to teaching? Not to say that teaching isn't, you know, but...
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I'll shock you that my last job in the private sector and my first salary in teaching, the difference was 5 times.
So okay, this has led me to...
No, it's part of strategy.
Yeah.
I'm saying that I retired strategically.
Okay.
You know, so you know when you see when as a person you must decide this is what I want to follow. So I'd worked in the private sector. In aviation, I did not have much of time because you are on call 24/7 as marketing manager. My clients were big chiefs in many nations in this world, many serious governments. So I just decided I just want a change of career. And I teach not because I'm paid, but I teach because I like my mission in life. Let me put it that way, because we are talking about strategy. My mission in life is to affect people's lives positively. So if I meet you, even if you house sad or you have a problem, even students know, even if I'm chasing you away, I will chase you in a way that will leave you a better person. So I just decided to pursue that. But let us go back to the strategy. So I've been a marketing manager, marketing director, sales and marketing manager. And that involves a lot of strategy. When I went to teaching, I became a chair of department. I became a dean of faculty of business and economics. And it requires a lot of strategic thinking, so to speak. Sure. Especially in teaching, you need more of strategic thinking than strategic plan. Because strategic plan is for the entire university that says we need to have this number of programs in your faculty. But you see, having come from the private sector, I had to engage in strategic thinking in my faculty, so that I would call even, I introduced career days in my faculty, which would be supported by private sector, and they would come and talk to students. Now that is called strategic thinking. But basically in strategy, from now the private sector aspect, and I've used many of those strategies that I've put in my book, The Winning Strategy, where basically you decide, are you going to diversify? You see, like now when things are not going very well. So one of the major strategies that I've used and which any organization can use is to diversify. For example, even KBC has done diversification, because diversification can be either related or unrelated. Related in terms of, for you guys, you have radio for which speaks in different languages. That's diversification. Yeah. Another strategy that is used a lot, other than diversification, is a growth strategy where you decide to do something entirely different. But in my workplace, in my own workplace, I've opted to use diversification that is related. Because when you use diversification that is related, you use the same resources, the same people, and you grow your portfolio. Like, for example, when I worked for Johnson, SC Johnson, it's a family business. They do insecticides like Johnson-8, Raid. And so Raid was introduced when I was the brand manager. And Raid is an insecticide, Johnson-8 is an insecticide. So that is related diversification. Because sometimes when you do unrelated diversification, like for example, you decide you're going to start a bakery, then you must have different people with different skills and all that. So basically, if you have to have a strategy that is winning, you must look at your resources, you must look at what you do, and then you must look at what is it that your customers can do. Because in sales, we also say you can do what is called upselling. You've come to buy something, then I tell you, hey, for example, I saw the other day in the supermarket, now Royco has ginger, has garlic. That is called related diversification. Yeah. So you can see people use these things everywhere, but probably they don't think about it in terms, they just say, so they look at the customer who uses Royco is likely to cook tea. So let me give them garlic, let me give the whatever, let me give them ginger. Yeah. Then they realize, hey, guys who use Bluebird also use peanut. Yeah. So those are, basically you must look at your customer before you even decide which kind of strategy are you going to take. What is it that the customer, that's why in strategy analysis, you must analyze issues first before you decide this is the way I'm going. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Now, I want you to speak to someone who's watching us right now and they would want to get into this field of being a strategic manager. Maybe how do they go about enhancing their skills? Yeah.
First and foremost is you must have the attitude of continuous learning. Because in strategy, we say what worked yesterday may not work today. So if you have been if you are always saying this worked last year, why are we changing, then there's a problem. So you must continuously learn as a person. In strategy, continuous learning is key. And you must be somebody who is always reading and learning. And other than that, you also must be a strategic thinker. You must be adaptable. You know, you can't be a strategic manager and you are rigid. You must be adaptable. You must be visionary. You must be somebody that, and some of those things is not just about reading. It's just a decision you make as a leader. Because you know strategy starts at the top. Of course, with communication going all through. You must be somebody who is able to visualize. You know, we normally say in leadership that you create your future. So strategists create futures. You don't say, this is the future I'm going to. You create that future. And you create that future by looking at the things that are happening. And then you come up with things that will take you where you think your future should be. So basically, every manager must be strategic in nature. Otherwise, you know, Vivian, management on itself without strategy is just planning, controlling, organizing. It's routine. And in the environment we are living in today, you can't afford to be a routine person. That basically because things are working, you know, we are making some little money, we are fine. You must actually come out of your comfort zone and also be a risk taker. Strategists are risk takers. They take risk.
Okay, we'll hold that thought and then we take a commercial break, but don't you go too far. We'll come back to continue with this conversation.